What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel and another video. As you saw in the last video, if you haven't, go watch the last video, but I did tear my CV axle boot when I was installing this leveling kit. Completely my fault. I'm now going to replace it. Decided to go ahead and do a video on it and show you guys how to do this job because it's really not that hard. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. All right, guys, so first step here is to go ahead and remove the wheel. These are 22 millimeter lug nuts here. Let's go ahead and zap these off and we will go ahead and get started. All right, guys, so before I went ahead and jumped into taking these lug nuts off, I actually realized that I could take off the center cap if you have the stock wheels. You can pop that off with just a knife or a flathead, and you can actually take out the nut right here. It's actually a lot easier to do it this way because the wheel's on the ground, so it helps you with the pressure. This here is actually a 35 millimeter axle nut, so it is 35 millimeter there, so just go ahead and loosen that up before you go ahead and take off the wheel. All right, guys, as you can see, it is a freaking mess in here with all the grease, but next step is to go ahead and take off your tie rod here. For me, that was a 13/16. So go ahead and zap that off. You should be able to just pull it right up. If not, just hit it with a mallet, or you can go ahead and hit it with a hammer on the knuckle there, and it should go ahead and pop that right out for you. Next thing we're gonna do is go ahead and take off the brake caliper. And that's gonna be 16 millimeter bolt and another 16 millimeter bolt right down here. All right, guys, so I kind of had to just go for it here. So this is a super messy job. I'm disgusting. I just wiped off my hands, but I mean, there's just a ton of grease everywhere. But anyway, this nut right here was a 13/16 as well. So I went ahead and zapped that off. I hit the knuckle here with a hammer, and that hammer knocked this loose. I was then able to pull this apart. Once I did that, oh, don't forget as well, you want to zip tie or something this brake caliper up so it doesn't stretch your lines here. Mine probably needs to be tightened up a little bit. But anyway, you want to do that. You also want to make sure you loosen this ABS line up as much as you can, or loosen it up as much as you can, because it will get tight. And you can go ahead and pull this back, and this does come out without taking the whole knuckle off. So just a pro tip there, this does come out without taking the knuckle off. So now I'm going to go ahead and work on getting it out of the axle side over there, and we'll get that out. All right, guys, so we are back out here about a week later. Things did not go as planned. Let me go ahead and explain exactly what happened once we got to the point of getting the CV axle out. As you can see, it was pretty quick and easy to get to the point where we were pulling that thing out, but it did not want to come off. So let me go ahead and explain exactly what happened and where we're at now. So I got to the point where I had everything off to the point where I just needed to get the stub shaft and the CV axle separated. So once I got to that point, I banged on that CV axle for about an hour with a 5-pound sledge, also while applying heat as well. Did not even budge. I mean, that thing was on there so good. Apparently it's a very common problem for these 5th gen Rams for those CV axles to seize on the stub shaft, especially on the passenger side, which is where I'm working on. So I did call reinforcements, call over a buddy of mine to see if he might be able to help out any better than what I was doing. So my buddy came over the next day. I accepted defeat the day that I filmed the video originally. My buddy came over the next day with an air hammer, and we just beat the living crap out of the CV axle. For at least an hour to 2 hours, we were hitting that thing with a sledgehammer, an air hammer, applying heat. Absolutely nothing was making this budge. I mean, it was really on there. No matter what we tried, nothing was working. So we had to look at some other options at this point. So my buddy that came over, he works at a dealership, has for many years. And basically what he told me is when this happens, the dealership just replaces the whole diff. And this has happened very often on these 5th gen Rams. He said it happens dang near every week. So they've been swapping out a lot of diffs in these trucks. So basically where I'm stuck at is spending $1,500 on a new diff and doing a diff swap on a 2019 vehicle because of rust. Very hard pill to swallow, and I was not happy to hear that news. Luckily, my buddy has connections. He was able to call his one of his work friends at another dealership I was able to source out a used diff that was in great condition. Apparently the customer thought that it was seized on there. It wasn't. The guy was able to bust it off pretty quick, but the guy still wanted to put the new diff in. So he was gonna junk that diff, but I called it just the right time. So I was able to run and get that for free. Now, of course, swapping out a diff, you're gonna wanna do that on a lift. It's not something you wanna do on jack stands in the garage. That diff is not light. It's something you wanna do where you have a little more space to work. And my buddy, of course, was booked up for like a week, maybe even 2 weeks before he could get to it. And we were getting snow that next week. So I wanted to have 4x4, I wanted everything to work. So I got a little innovative. Let me show you exactly what I did for my situation. Hopefully this helps out someone to be able to swap this out without having to have a mechanic do it. Something you can do in your garage that's super easy. So let me show you exactly what I did. So at this point, what we did is we went ahead and yanked this thing off. This was, you know, when I thought we were gonna have to wait about 2 weeks to get the new diff. Obviously I was not going to have 4x4, but at this point it was just slinging grease everywhere. We just pulled this thing off, and we were just gonna let it ride with just that part that was stuck on the stub shaft for the time being. Of course, that's not really a solution I wanted to go with. So I was sitting in my garage the next day, just kind of looking at things, and realized that the diffs in these 1500s are a 2-piece design. So let me show you what I did. All right, so as you can see, I even tried to cut this thing off. It still wouldn't come off. So this right here, this is the new diff, or the used diff that I was given for free. Again, I noticed this is a 2-piece design. So what I did, and I did this with the vehicle on jack stands, super easy to do. I took these 4 bolts out. There's one underneath there and one right here. Took these 4 bolts out, took this piece off, and I went ahead and swapped that onto my already existing diff that was on my truck. Everything matched up perfectly, no issues at all. And what's weird is this diff right here, when I looked up the part numbers for it, said it was for a 2021 and up. So it didn't even include a 2019 in the list of parts that would fit, or trucks that would fit. That was wrong. So if you have a diff for these 5th gen Rams, pretty much all of them are interchangeable, except you have to make sure you have the right gear ratio. So do make sure you have the right gear ratio before you go ahead and try this job here. But yeah, I went ahead and swapped that out. I did that all while the truck was on jack stands. Did not have to remove the whole diff. Just remove those 4 bolts, remove the 2 ones right here that connect to the motor mount, and went ahead and slid that right off. It was actually very simple to do. It took me roughly about an hour to swap this out. I put the new piece on, was able to put my new CV axle on, and everything matched up perfectly, went for a test drive, and all was well. One thing I will say, be very careful with these right here, these 2 bolts. I did have one strip out on me. Luckily, it's holding in there strong enough right now on the truck. It hasn't caused any issues for me, but that is something you want to watch out for when you're doing a swap like this. And of course, if you don't really care, you can swap out the whole entire diff. If you have a lift, you know, this is for now, for me, is just an extra cord that I have, and hopefully I can get that off so where I have a whole extra diff. But if you want to make it a lot easier on yourself, you can remove this section and swap it onto your already existing diff. I would recommend also doing a fluid change as well, because you will lose some fluid when you swap this on and off. So I went ahead and did a full fluid change in the diff in my truck already after I swapped that. As you can see, guys, there is the new CV axle in there, everything lined up perfectly. Been driving on this about a week or so. Haven't had any issues. 4x4 works perfectly. Everything is smooth as can be. All right, guys, so yeah, that's exactly what I did in the situation. I wanted to do a video. I was hoping this would be super easy to do. But if you have a 5th gen Ram, or really any Ram 1500, this is an issue across pretty much all of them on the passenger side. Just something to watch out for if you're gonna do this type of job. You're gonna tackle this job here. You're probably gonna have to do a little bit more than just trying to knock that thing off. So this is what I did in my situation. You can find those used diffs on eBay for like, I think it was 400 to about 800 bucks. So if you have to swap out a whole diff, you don't have to buy new. Make sure you look at eBay first. Because that's what I was gonna do, is just buy a used diff for like 800, 700, 800 bucks and just call it a day. So hope this helps somebody out. This was an extremely frustrating 3-day job for me that should have been an hour job. So shame on Ram for the engineering on this. It makes no sense that a 2019 should have an issue like this, but just something to keep in mind if you tackle this job, that you may have to do a little more work than you were anticipating, but this is a great solution for you, that's going to save you some money without having to do a whole diff swap if that thing is really seized on there. And this is the CV axle that I swapped into. I got this on 18auto.com. I think it was like $100, so the part itself is super cheap. And I've had great experience with it so far. Again, it's been a very short period of time, but it felt like great quality going in the truck. So would definitely recommend 18auto and their CV axle assemblies for the 1500. And that's gonna do it for today, guys. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them down in the comment section. I'd be glad to answer them. I learned a lot during this 3-day fiasco that I went through with different type of diff issues that happened with these 1500s, so it was a great learning experience for me, but definitely not a fun job to do. I hope this thing never gives out again. So thank you guys so much for watching. Again, if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them down in the comment section. Please like and subscribe for more truck content coming your way here very soon. Thanks for watching.